Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super Mater Brothers podcast, episode 1, Survivor 48. A little bit different, a little setup here. No Dave. Dave is on vacation. Jeff is working hard, so you get myself, Foster, and also Becky.
Howdy.
Foster, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be back this season, Jaemeel. And, it's a new season, 2-hour premiere. A lot to get into. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. New season of Survivor. It's good to see you. We missed you last season, so welcome back.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And this is Becky's first time doing Super Mater Brothers, and her first time watching Survivor since what, season 2?
Australia.
Yeah, season
Outback.
2.
Oh, wow.
It's been a while. So thank you for having me. Happy to be on it, and I can't wait to get into the premiere, 2-hour premiere, which is really interesting. Lots to talk about.
So, okay, for people who haven't been watching the show in a while, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Was that too much?
No. It was a lot more than what's happened or transpired in the past, which is really cool. And I think there's a lot of things to definitely get into and jump right into. So that's
Okay.
good. Lots of changes since the last time I watched.
Okay. One last thing.
Yeah.
Each episode, regular episode, is like an hour and a half.
Wow.
It's not just 1 hour. It's an hour and a half every episode.
Wow. So it runs a lot longer than it used to.
Yes.
It used to run like 40 minutes, I think, 45 minutes max.
Yeah.
About an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, with the so like an hour without with commercials, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, touching base with Foster, who we haven't seen in a bit. Foster, have you watched any of Survivor since the last time you were on the show?
Yeah, like I honestly, I was doing I was working on some things and dealing with some things, and I'm doing better now. But no, I was doing my best to keep up. I saw most of last season. I think like there was a stretch of like 3 episodes before the merge I missed, and actually what was happening was just because of my schedule is actually, because they get locked after a week right after for the episode, right? So I would actually watch it at the last minute on Tuesday night, for the previous week, because that was the last day you could watch, the episode online or whatever, right? And then, then the next week would happen. Anyway, so I was that far behind in a sense throughout last season. And then the only other episode I missed was the finale. And just at the time, just timing, I guess, that just didn't work out for me kind of thing to watch it. But no, like last season, I thought, was really good. I felt like there was a lot, like, I feel like, the big theme of last season was like, no one wanted to hurt anybody's feelings and everyone wanted to be like, everyone was kind of like, no one, like, as soon as someone kind of made a bold statement or move, then they were kind of like target public enemy number one. Right. And like, it didn't get to like, when I went towards the end of the season, I felt like there was some really strong, competitors. Like I felt like, like Andy, especially, like I had Andy and I was like kind of shocked he made it as far as he did, and like he actually became really good, and then he like kind of blew it all up when he told his whole game plan to Rachel, right?
Yeah.
And but like like, so I could have seen like Andy or Genevieve win, which they didn't make it to final 3, and then I know that the final 4. Well, Rachel ended up winning, obviously, but she was the obvious choice. I felt like in the final 3 or 4,
It was pretty
Sam
academic at that point.
Yeah. The Sam was a clear second. I think that from what Dave was telling me, I think Sam beat Tiney, I think, in the fire making. Like that was like apparently it was a big comeback or something like that.
Yeah.
And Sue made final 3, and but I was really kind of like the last like second half of the season, just like there's always like 1 or 2 people you really don't like and they really stick out. And we're going to get to that tonight because you already have one person in my mind, at least, that kind of sticks out as that person. And but no, for last season though, it was like Tiney, and I was like, it's like just like I don't know, just the attitude and like like felt like she was better than she was and she wasn't. And anyways, that was like I said, like I felt last season was pretty good though. I felt like across the board competitive wise, it's just like you don't see the cutthroat gameplay, like the aggressive, like so much more of the aggressive moves, like again going back to those, everyone doesn't want to hurt each other's feelings and stuff, right? There's so much emphasis on how the jury views you, right, as a
Mm-hmm.
person rather than your gameplay. I feel like, right. But no, like again, like I pretty much saw it all, right? It was just kind of the timing of when I was seeing it. And what? How did you like? Speaking of which, how did you feel, kind of, Jaemeel? Like I know we're like obviously we got the new season like today in 48. But what was your kind of thoughts on? I didn't see any of the podcast, unfortunately. So
Of last season.
yeah,
Okay. So I had Sue and Gabe. So Gabe was more in the vein of what you were talking about, a very aggressive player.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke poorly about some of his teammates,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time he was extremely loyal to a specific few, including Sue. So I like Gabe. I liked Gabe. I didn't think that he was being overtly more cocky than others. If you are in a pretty good position, um, of course, you say 100 things, and they're gonna take out the parts that make you look a certain way. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt that for the most part, people liked Gabe. Now, where the flip side of that, where you're being overly cocky, would be an individual who is named Rome, who would literally dance after doing stuff, right?
he was my
And
other pick, Jaemeel. I couldn't believe that he lasted as long as he did.
he was awful. And
Really?
then people actually hate him
Mm-hmm.
post game, which is telling, right? And I was hoping that Sue would do well. She got to the end, but she was a 0 vote finalist.
Oh.
All like okay, my issue is the online discourse between Sue versus Tiney, and people feeling that Tiney had done more or had more win equity than Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Tiney didn't win anything. She was strategically lost and always at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a great storyteller in terms of what was going on in the game. And people gravitated to that. But understanding that you like that person for that role doesn't necessarily mean that they're good in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I felt that Sue had done more, had built more relationships, and was a better player than Teeny. Regardless, Teeny was terrible. Teeny lost. Sue lost. Sue wasn't as good either. She did not have a winning game. Rachel won. Rachel tied the record, I think, of most comp wins, individual comp
Oh
wins,
wow.
right? Which I think only four other women have achieved that mark.
Wow.
So,
Impressive.
yeah. But that was 47. This is 48. So, who do you have in the draft?
I've got so I had the second pick, and so I had the 17th pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the second pick, I picked Ava. She's the she I guess the big thing was that she talked about it this episode. She has autism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually watching it with my neighbors and tonight, and I'm not, like, I'll admit I'm not very familiar with the spectrum of autism and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not like, I honestly, when I was looking at her bio, like the fact that she played on the men's hockey team, I'm like, okay, you're my girl, like that's pretty cool, right? Like I thought that was that stood out to me, right? And I think she's the youngest player on this season, which I don't know, like I'm sure you noticed, like it's a much older cast. There's not a lot of like there's maybe like 2 or 3 20-year-olds. It felt like, or seems like there's not a lot of younger people.
Mm-hmm.
um but Ava was the second pick in our draft. She was my first pick. And then with the second last pick, I picked oh, it's just escaping me now.
Describe them.
He has the other impediment, so I didn't
Oh,
realize this.
Mitch.
Oh, Mitch. Yeah.
Mitch.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought actually it
I
was a
like
speech
Mitch.
impediment, but my neighbor had pointed out that because he talked about that one, I can't remember, like the player back in
Deaf. Yeah.
The deaf
Amazon,
player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Where was they were deaf, right? So I thought it was a speech impediment, but I guess he's partially deaf. I must have missed that part. Or I don't think he is deaf though, right? It's something I can't remember exactly what he said was his
I thought it was just a
impairment.
speech
It just
impediment.
said speech.
Oh, I
I
thought it was a
think.
speech impediment too, but maybe
But it
my
comes
neighbor
across
pointed it out, and
as
maybe because there's that delay in the talking, right? There
yeah.
is, but I thought it was a speech impediment. Maybe it is, right? He didn't really talk about it much this episode, and I'm sure
Yeah.
he will, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like those were my two picks. I think the first pick in our draft was Cedric, I believe, right?
Yeah. Which
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about Cedric the surgeon in a bit.
Who was your
Before I
pick,
go,
Jaemeel?
oh, okay. I was gonna say before I tell my pick, I was gonna say Becky wasn't in our draft, but Becky has two particular people.
Oh, I picked Mitch like right from the jump. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
he's a PE teacher. I was like, oh, he's gonna win it. He's gonna be one of the four. Um, I think he had a really good persona, and just from reading his bio and through the articles and the YouTube clips I was watching and stuff, I was like, okay, Mitch is my guy. But after watching tonight, I definitely Joe, the
Fire chief,
fire
yeah.
chief. I think he's got a good presence, and I hope he seems like a generally like good guy, which he might not last long, but we're gonna
I say that
really
Joe's not gonna
hope
last long, but we'll talk about that.
that he does.
My two picks were Kevin,
Kevin.
and Kamala. I think it's Kamala, right? Camila.
Camila.
Maybe.
She's coincidentally enough, she's from Foster City. I didn't even know that was a place. I'm looking at her
Well,
draft right now because it shows where they're from.
yeah. Well, she's the Canadian.
Yeah.
She's from Toronto.
Oh, it's okay because it says Foster City, California. I guess that's where she's living.
Yeah. Currently, she's living, but she is the Torontonian, which I'm surprised Dave didn't pick. Dave usually picks the Canadian players. So the reason why I picked the two is I felt that Kevin was a good balance of social and strength, and Camilla looked. She looks like I think she's there for the long game because last year Rachel didn't necessarily stand out as like a top performer, but she really came into her own in the individual game. She seemed like a really good balance, and I was thinking that Camilla is similar in that vein. I tendency to pick individuals who don't last, right, or get injured or something happens. So when we start off with the first challenge, I was immediately thinking back that I'm gonna lose Kevin because he has a shoulder injury. Foster, how did you feel about the first challenge?
You know what? Strong start. Like I know that I usually have and we'll talk about the other challenge and stuff, right? And I'm very like it's funny enough. I actually like it finished a while ago, but I finished actually the recent season of the challenge. And the funny thing I was and I can't remember I was talking to Dave about this, but the challenge, the most recent one, the final had a lot of swimming involved, and that's not something that's really a part of Survivor, in the terms of like the aspect of competitions, right? Usually because they're all in the shallow water, and if they are and whatnot, right? But and it was a quick little point on the side, right? But with regards to this first challenge, pretty basic in the sense that it's just like, you're getting down and dirty, like it's kind of funny how, as we were talking about my neighbors about this, it's like, like we were talking about Bruce, who live in infamy, as the one who hit it. So Becky, this was a gentleman that he, on the very first challenge, they had a bar. They used to have this bar where the rope was, right? And he hit his
Okay.
head on the bar, and he had to be
Ooh.
medically removed for the first challenge.
No.
Yeah.
And then
Oh
like the
my
next
goodness.
season, they actually like raised, like they angled the bar so that like you
Ugh.
could get under it easier because he had
Oh
hit his
yeah.
head. And then
Yeah.
this season they don't even have it anymore. So
Yeah.
Oh
it's
wow.
like it's like on the ground, they have to pull it up, they get it's but
Mhm.
it's funny how things have evolved, Jameel, in that sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? But no, very basic. You get through the mud, you pull it, you bring the crates back, and then you got to toss the bags, right? Pretty much, right? Like it's not very complicated. It's just like basically like, it's not like it's a super high intensity thing. Like obviously, like
Mhm.
Kevin looked like he got hurt. They didn't talk about it really in much of the rest of the episode.
No. No.
He
So it
probably just
wasn't.
tweaked it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it
Probably
didn't
just
look like
tweaked
it
it.
was. Well, and then funny enough, because like I know I'm jumping a little bit, but like he went on like the individual to get their flint or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And I'm like kind of like, what are you doing? But like I know you
Yeah.
failed, you hurt yourself, but like I would have been like, just give me you know what I mean? Like it's earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like,
Yeah.
I know first impressions are everything, but like we've seen in the past, people go too hard at the beginning and it completely just derail. Like they have to be removed, right? Like whether it's Bruce or other people, right? So the fact that he didn't really hurt himself is good to see. But
Yeah.
no, like, and then it's like I said, it's a basic challenge. We're gonna talk about later. Like Loggy seems very strong.
Mhm.
Like we had our picks 2 to 6 in our draft were 5 Loggy.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
had picked Ava as the first one, but I don't know if that was like, I just picked her because based on her, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if like people had picked Loggy based on what they looked like as a team, but they already look really strong to me, Jamil.
They do. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Well, you could say they do. It's fine. Like I when you see a team that strong, I think they're going to be in trouble because a team that doesn't go to tribal council until later in the game, people always complain about like trust isn't developed until there's a vote and you know where the chips lay, right? And they seem so strong of a team that they might not see tribal council until the merge. And if that happens, that could be very troublesome for a lot of these people who won't get tested at all, right? And they'll be thrown into something where a lot of the other members of the team of other teams are going to be a lot more experienced and ready. So,
Mhm.
Well, there was the one
yes,
tribe last season. It was I think it was the Blue Tribe, whatever, right? And they had like
Gabe's too.
five of them make the merge or something like that. Like
Wow.
they just like it was, and then like there was the 4 of them that don't. I can't remember exactly. It was, I think it
Yeah.
was the Sue and Gabe tribe,
Yep.
and Kyle, and it was, I can't remember the fourth, but like or maybe it was Rachel, I think, or something like that. I can't remember. But they were just really strong. No, it
It
wasn't
was
Rachel.
it was
But you
the
know what I mean, though, right?
Polynesian, yeah.
But the same kind of premise, though, in terms of like you're right though, like even like, and we'll get to the vote, and we'll get to like who went to tribal and stuff, right? But even like, but like you said, like tribal is really where it shows who you can trust and who you can't trust,
Mhm.
right? And when you get to that point, you don't really know, right? Like people are all just talking buddy buddy and stuff, right? And especially when they're winning all the time, they tend to put the team above because they just want to win, not go to tribal. But you're right, they're not prepared for,
Mhm.
the social aspect of, like people, and essentially being, um, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit inconspicuous, if you will,
Yeah.
Mhm.
lying, if you will, getting understand those people's tells, so but and also seeing what truly people are in tribal council when it comes to when they're talking, which I feel like they saw tonight with the tribal council that was happening, that we'll get to later on. um but yeah, like it, but Loggy scene, going back to it though, Loggy scene is really strong right off the bat. Like you could tell, like it's dominant.
Yeah. Becky was choosing Loggy.
Oh yeah, right off the bat, like right when they all kind of right before the challenge and they all jumped into it, that very first challenge. And Jaemeel was like, "Who do you think's gonna win?" I'm like, it's Loggy for sure. Like they're just gonna overtake and overpower. Like they just had that presence. And then when you add in like the professions and what they all like, what they do, they're a physically strong team.
Yeah, and I think also mentally strong too.
Mentally too.
So I worry about them a lot because I don't think they'll lose. Although the spoilers for the next episode kind of implies that something might happen.
No.
But I always feel like it's misdirected though, right? Like I don't know, like it's always something that's not actually true. Like like we'll get to it and stuff, right? But at the same time, it's um, like they talked poorly and they showed Ava, and I'm like, well, I don't think that's really the case, and because how many times have they shown it one way, but it's not actually that way and stuff, right? And also
True.
too, like if they don't go to tribal, then it's like that it kind of like it just skips by for another few days, right? And then because things can change so quickly, especially when we're not going to tribal.
Very true. Very true.
So,
All right. So they do the challenge, and then we see that obviously was it
Kevin and
Kevin and Kyle.
yeah.
Kyle.
So was it Lavi? Lavi wins, right?
Yeah.
Loggy.
Lavi wins. Lagi. I'm gonna
know,
learn the
it's-
teams.
It always takes a few episodes to learn the teams and the names. I always feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Lagi, Vula, and Siva as the three different teams. So Lagi is in purple, Vula is in green, and Siva is in orange. Okay, so Kevin and Kyle are the ones that are sent off to do the challenge to win their Flint. Was it their
Yeah, the Flint.
their pot and their Flint.
Pot, machete, and Flint. Yeah.
Yeah. So we see two different approaches there. Kyle is trying to be slow and steady, and Kevin is trying to be slow and steady, and Kyle seems to just be a madman rushing through, and ultimately Kevin's plan of attack seems to be more fruitful in the long run, as Kyle accidentally breaks a vital portion of the challenge, enabling him to finish the challenge. Bex, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I was just thinking he was really rushing through that whole challenge too, and I think his goal was like, oh, I've got to just complete it. Because he even with the coconut, like he didn't take his time like Kevin did to figure the puzzle out and to figure out like, oh, it's in the coconut. You see Kyle just smash his way through, which he continued to do when it came to the bottle filling portion. It was nice to see Kyle then at the end when he smashed the bottle though come over to Kevin and help him complete the challenge, even though it had no bearing on Kyle.
I agree. I was also wondering why Kevin was still rushing to finish the challenge. Like at that point, Kyle screwed up. It was like you can, take as much time as possible to fill up the water, but he seemed like he was yeah. That too. I do not understand. I'll bring it up after we talk about the challenge. Do you have any thoughts about this this challenge that just happened between Kyle and Kevin?
Well, first of all, it was different. Something different for once. I've never seen something like that before in terms of like like usually it's a sweat, or I can't remember the word, right? Like it's a sweater or
Sweater
savvy,
smart,
savvy.
yeah, sweater
Savvy.
savvy.
Now,
Right.
yeah, I couldn't remember really. Now I get it, of course, but it's sweater savvy, and that's usually how it goes for the previous ones. And this one was just more of kind of like a figure it out as you go along. Two very different approaches with the rope as well. Even with getting the pot off, the one guy Kyle chopped it down, and Kevin pushed it off with a branch and stuff, right? And then yeah, like it was, but like for me, like I kind of wanted him to I don't know why. It just I don't know. I thought it'd be funny if he tried to pull the key out and then try to go for it, and then you see a production person come into Fernie and be like, no, you're DQ or whatever, right? Which that's not how they do that on. They don't do that on Survivor, right? Like they do that on the challenge a bit, where they'll the host will come in and be like, no, you screwed up, you DQ'd, or and they'll call him out on the spot kind of thing, right? So no, obviously it's and I feel like with the way that Kevin handled it, like Kyle handled it, he was essentially just buying goodwill with Kevin for potentially the future, right? More than anything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like again, like I think the big thing for me was different, right? It was just a different kind of challenge, and that's just where something that I've said to you before, Jaemeel. It's a lot of the same things, parts of challenges and stuff, which are fine. Staples are definitely fine, but it's nice, in my opinion, to change things up because especially when the show's been going on for so long, you can't prepare for things like that. Like that's not even a challenge you really want to prepare for because it's just like you just do it, right? Like you just get it done.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, we have Kevin victorious, and we start to meet the other tribes, or all the tribes, I guess, at this point. Which tribe do we want to talk about first? Do you have a preference?
I was just say I was gonna say purple tribe.
Okay,
the Lavi
Lagi.
tribe.
Okay, so
Let's do
thoughts
one
about
first.
Lagi?
I like I said, I just find they're really strong. I find Joe is their leader.
Yeah.
He's really pushing that team and holding them together at this point. It could change down the road, but he's giving them that comfort of, especially to Eva. Eva?
No, is it Ava?
Ava?
Ava. Yeah, so she's my
Ava.
pick.
Yeah.
She's the one that revealed her background with the autism.
Yeah, she got a touch of the
came out
autism.
with she came up to Joe and told her about the situation and like how best to help her going forward. And I think they had that really touching moment, and they've bonded over that. Like Joe said, like I've got her.
Yeah,
like she's now under my wing.
To me, just spells that Joe is not long for this game. Because
No.
okay, the way I see it is, there's either two scenarios that occur with Joe, and that is either Joe is gets eliminated and Ava is by herself, or Joe and Ava make it near to the end, and there becomes a hard decision where one has to eliminate the other, and is Joe gonna fall on his sword for her, or like?
No, no, you're right. I think you're Jaemeel. I think it's the latter, right? I think that if they do go, I think they're more likely to go farther together. Like they are a very strong duo, and but the problem with that is even if they make the merge, right, and they will become if it becomes apparent that they are close and they're like a duo, then I would be more inclined to say that Joe would be more of a target. And that maybe is because I don't know, for whatever, you get the sense there's always one of the two that are going to be, when they split somebody up like last season between Sam and what was her name? She made the jury, but I can't remember her. Sierra, no, not Sierra.
But like, if someone told me her name was, I think it's Sarah.
Yeah, but there's always like, I don't know. Like, I think you're right. I think Joe is like, Joe may be too nice, right? Whereas Ava might be, when pushed to shove, she may be a little bit more flexible. She'll stick with Joe to the bitter end. But I feel like if it comes down to shove, like, they may, I don't know. It just depends. I guess it also depends on who's around too, right? Because Ava might have, like she said, she has struggles with, the social cues and making connections and all that, right? So there could be potential where she unintentionally doesn't develop those extra bonds that Joe might be able to. But then again, on the flip side, Joe would have those extra bonds and keep Ava in the loop kind of close, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and you could also look at Joe as a stronger competitor as well, right? Being a male, being more, being older and more experienced. And like even with was it the fire making that he made today too? Like that stands out too.
Yeah.
I think that Ava is the tank of that team because she looks like she can mess someone up. And outside of Captain America on the other team, right? I think she's possibly the most physically imposing person in the game, honestly, because just despite her height, I think like she like if there was a race, she's smoking Joe,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Right?
I just looked at the ages. Like she's 24. The next
Yeah.
oldest is on her team, which is Star, and she's 27. She's the
Is
basketball player,
yeah,
Basketball player,
I
yeah.
believe. I didn't. It's not her profession, but she plays basketball.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then the next one is Justin, who's 29. But there's only 20 or something year olds,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, but you're right though. Like Ava, I didn't expect her to be that. Like once again, what stood out to me, she plays the men's hockey. She's on the men's hockey team, and she's like one of their best, one of the better players, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you could tell, like you said, like she is like built, like she's like in a good way, like she's
Yeah. She's
like she's
ready.
an athletic person. You can
She's
tell, like
ready.
she's
Yeah.
got that stamina in her.
Fit.
And hockey, like, is like I personally don't do I play ice hockey, but I know that endurance is one of the biggest things for it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and yeah. I wonder if she gets into any fights at the collegiate level. I don't know if they do.
I'm sure
And
well, that's the other thing too, because she plays with the men, right?
yeah,
How that would shake down, because
Yeah.
it is a huge, it's a big significant weight class difference, right? And even like
Yeah.
height and stuff too, right? So I don't know. She may like get involved, but I'm sure she has players in her team that would like step in and like handle the business, if you
Really?
will.
I still think she could probably throw
No,
down
I
a lot
think
of
she
people.
could, but if it's a big difference though, right? It's like just in the physique and
The
body
height.
type, right? Like
Yeah.
she stands out here, but she's like on the bottom when it comes to, I would think, men's hockey, and that's just how, like, that's just physiology or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any who else stands out from Laggy?
Well,
Thomas?
they've got. Well, I'm just gonna run it. So they've got Shohin. Um,
That's
Shaw,
the Persian
yeah,
debater,
Yeah.
So he was our third pick by Jane. Bianca was our fourth pick by Dave.
the social
Okay.
butterfly,
Yeah.
Star was fifth by Jen.
basketball player.
Joe, we just talked about, was Daryl at
Joe.
6.
Good old
And
Joe.
then
That's such a Daryl pick too.
Thomas was actually it was the last of the Loggies, and he was actually picked 16 before my pick, Mitch. And again, like they all came from California, right? All the guys from that team, right?
Yeah.
Which I
And they're
thought
gonna
was
stick together.
interesting.
California
Right?
girl.
California
girls.
Joes or yeah.
California
Girls.
girls.
Yeah.
Such
Because
a
Thomas came up with the name, right? But no, it's but no, again, like that team just seems very strong across the
strong.
board. Like,
Yeah.
you had the the initial alliance of Joe and Ava, and then there was Thomas and Bianca. So yeah, again, like it all really shakes down, like you said, Jaemeel, when it comes to first elimination, or not elimination, first tribal.
first tribal. Yeah. We'll see how long it takes for them to get there. Anything else on Laggy before we move on to the other teams?
I think we touched on everything.
Okay, so your choice. Which team would you like to talk about next?
I mean, why don't we save the team that went to tribal for last?
Okay.
Because like we'll talk about the challenge obviously after the teams, but like let's just finish off with that. So let's talk about spoiler alert, Vula went to tribal, which was the green team, and Siva redeemed themselves at the first challenge, which we'll get to after this, and they got their Flint. But Siva, though, like the first pick in our draft for Siva was David, which I believe was the stunt man, I think, right?
Captain America,
Yeah, and so he was the 10th pick actually,
which is insane.
before your pick, Jaemeel, for Camilla or Camila.
Yeah.
Camila.
I was not going to take him though.
No,
I thought no.
well, he's not gonna. He won't. I don't think he'll. If he gets to individual, he'll win some, but then he'll win too many like Kyle did last season. But he's obviously not like the same physique as Kyle.
Yeah. He's too imposing of. They're not going to let that man sniff individual. the merge situation. There's no way they'll
Oh, you know,
throw it.
I think he will. I just think that because the team needs him now, but if he makes merge, then he'll win too many at the start, like 2 or 3, whatever, within the first 4 or 5, and then he's gone because he's too much. Like just like once again, like just like Kyle was, he was such a huge target last season because he was crushing everyone in the challenges, individual
The
challenges.
the only problem with that is, um, okay, let's say he only wins a couple of the individual immunities. That means there's a couple of immunities where you as another guy on his same tribe
Mm-hmm.
are going to be a bigger target because it's like, oh well, we can't get rid of him, so let's get rid of, Mitch instead, or let's get rid of. I'm trying to think of someone else on that same team.
Well, there was Charity, Kyle, Mitch, and Chrissy
Yeah.
in that
So
order of throughout the draft.
so um, he wins the immunity, so that means Mitch is up, or Kyle is up, or Cherry's up, right? Um, so why would you put yourself in a position where you're kind of defenseless and you only have the gambit of hoping that you've made enough good relationships with other people on other tribes to survive, whereas good old Cap is okay. I'm gonna call him Cap this entire season, right? Because he looks like Becky was mentioning. He looks like Chris Evans' stuntman.
And he said too he was like some superhero's
Yeah.
stunt double or
So
something.
he's a stunt man, right? So like he does
Yeah.
all that kind of good stuff for the back. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's hoping that people love the Fall Guy
Yeah.
because this was filmed last year. So he's like, yeah, Fall
Oh.
Guy with Ryan Gosling's coming out. People are gonna love stuntmen. I'm gonna be set. um,
I don't know if you noticed, but like Chrissy was just ogling him the whole episode.
Yeah.
She's got a huge, and she's the oldest. She was in the game. She's 55. She's the only 50-plus-year-old in the game.
Wow.
The next oldest is 45, which is both
Sure.
Cedric and Joe. So there's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And I picked Mitch over Chrissy because I didn't see Chrissy as the same as like as well suited last season. I don't know how old Sue was, but I feel like she was in that range of over 50.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but it seemed like she had older kids too.
Yeah. Sue. I'm gonna show you a picture, Sue.
Okay. Yeah.
Sue had I don't want to be mean, but yes, Sue was a physical older woman, but I think that was more of like she was was it she was not a flight she flew the planes. She was
Pilot?
Well,
she was a pilot.
she had like a flight school or something.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I think Chrissy has like that the practice strength, like in practice, not like working out, like obviously to work as was it a fire captain as well? She's a fire captain as well.
Yeah, she's.
There is a certain level of fitness that you have to maintain,
Yeah.
right? And that is practical, right? Because otherwise you can't save yourself, you can't save others. So Chrissy to me seems very. I think she's well suited for the individual game when it's only herself she has to worry about as opposed to others. And I think she's going to be in the same kind of position that Rachel was in if she gets in and she builds the relationships that Rachel did.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I made a good pick or not.
I think
But But yeah, we
I think
talked
so.
a little bit about like because Kyle, Kyle kind of seemed like he didn't get the Flint and all that, but he kind of did a good job getting with the team. Cherry does not seem like she's making the best of friends. Throwing Kyle under the bus so early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then but how did you feel about your pick, Camila?
Um, it's still early. It seems that she's able to bond, I think, with Kyle,
Yeah.
because both of them are Guyanese, right? So that's good that she's found common ground, and I think eventually she's gonna kind of let the cat out of the bag as to what was being said about Kyle post this today situation, and I think that Cherry might be in a little bit of a situation because of that. Especially with nothing really seems to be cemented in terms of the groups. Like you can talk about the other tribes and how there seems to be clear cut groups. This one doesn't seem as solid.
No,
So
there's no there's no one really like between other than Camila and Kyle, which seem like just because of background and interests, which
yeah,
again like just like the California. I don't even want to call them the California girls. I don't like. I'm gonna figure out a better name for them because I don't. Anyways, we'll say that for now. But like, I know. Well, but it's just you can tell though that there's obviously it's and this has always been going on, but there's obviously a lot of thought into what's going to make the best TV because who's going to click with each other, right? And have those connections. And another one I think too was Thomas and Bianca, right? That was another kind of fit. I feel like Ava and Joe's actually was in a sense a good choice fit as well. And then I guess but again there's not really clear allegiances, if you will, other than Camilla and Kevin, and that's more so because of background and interests on Siva.
yeah.
They're very. They remind me of like a fluffier kind of tribe, if you will.
No, say what you call them. Say what you call them. She had a specific name.
Oh, okay. I referred to them as like Hufflepuff because that's what they remind me of. They're just fluffy. Like everything kind of seemed to be like okay with them. Like there was nothing. They definitely were a really strong team in comparison to the other two.
Yeah.
Hufflepuff in that kind of like, hey, we're all okay. We're all kind of like in consideration of like a Harry Potter, like in the Harry Potter world, I guess they consider Hufflepuff to be more of the lighter kind of
Slow and steady kind of
group. So it was like, oh,
because you see how intense Lagi is,
yes,
right? And you already see how in terms of what was the other teams called?
Vula.
Vula. Yeah. How also how Sai and some of the members are all over the place. Siva seems so kind of
like okay,
calm and even a little joyful too, right? So
definitely that
Mitch said it. Mitch said it best. He's like, we're searching for clues and all this stuff, and we're like, we don't have a shelter, we don't have any of this, we're screwed. I'm like that's just kind of like your team vibe. Like no one's really like. No one's kind of like freaking out in the corner, being like, "We got to do this, we got to do that, and let's."
Yeah, and they're just kind of like with whatever is just kind of taking them. Like no one's really picking up that mantle. So
yeah,
they were. I referred to them as Team Hufflepuff.
Team Hufflepuff and the orange too helps.
You just want to protect them. You just want to. It's okay.
Okay,
the good vibes team.
The good vibe team.
The good vibes team.
They're here for a good time. Maybe not a long time.
Well, speaking of not here for... Oh, wait, you going to say something?
No. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Speaking of not here for a long time, we kind of buried the lead. But the next challenge was lost by... I keep forgetting the team.
Okay, we're going to get it. I got Vula.
Vula. Okay.
Then we'll get to the actual challenge. Do you want to talk about the challenge first, or you want to talk about the team first?
I think we'll talk about the team, then we'll go into the challenge. Yeah.
That's an interesting team.
Yeah. Sai is a mess.
Shaking my head the whole time. I'm so
She's all
like
over
this
the
is.
Place.
I kept saying to my neighbors, I'm like, has she never watched Survivor?
Right?
Like this is the Rome of this season, Jaemeel?
Yeah.
Almost like tenfold worse in my opinion.
Yeah, she's gonna fizzle out so quickly. So
she's just.
And we're
Yeah.
just
She
so
came out of the
I'm sure the
gates.
audience knows, but we're speaking of what is it? Say,
is it
say,
say or
Sai,
yeah,
sigh?
say,
Sai,
is her name.
Sai.
Sai.
Is it Sai? Sai.
No, say. It's say
Is
because
it
she'll
Sai?
have her own say. You know, they made that
Oh.
comment. Say,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the pun. Yeah,
She came out of the gates swinging though. She's like, I gotta get my alliance. I gotta. Are you in? Are you in? Like it was a lot. It
yeah.
was like just watching that. Like it just felt like she was just bombarding them with like tokens of like leading up that friendship of like, hey, like let's form that alliance. You're like, just it's okay. Take a breath.
It's like nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
I'm Kevin. uh,
Like it just. Whew,
yeah, like she seemed like she was all over the place and she didn't seem to be able to. She didn't have any impulse control. I think is the number one thing. She when you are searching for an idol, you're supposed to like check in so it doesn't seem like you're gone for an hour, right? And it's very noticeable.
Maybe she wasn't wearing a watch.
Well, I think Star did that too. I think, in
Started
the
that too
live
as well.
drive, yeah, because they made that
Yeah.
comment as well of being over. But you're
Yeah.
right though, like on your own at like first day or two, like in this day and age of Survivor, you can't do that.
Can't do that. Can't do that. So yeah, she's a hot mess, and then you have my Kevin, who is perfectly
Kevin!
he's perfect. Protect him at all costs. I think I'm
That's
due
'cause
for a
he's-
win. I'm due for a win. Okay, I'm due for a
He'll
win.
redeem himself.
Hey, Jaemeel, I'm rooting for you to make the merge. I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
like I think
It'll-
Kevin's a solid pick if he can keep his shoulder intact. Um,
Doesn't hurt
but
himself.
and then Camilla, as long as she doesn't, because it looks like she wants to start some shit. And she said, like, what was it? What was the line she kept using? Like, I want to
Cause
for lack-
chaos.
cause chaos or ruffle feathers or whatever she said.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see Kevin lasting a lot longer, and he also seems a much more personable guy.
Yeah.
He's balanced. He's balanced.
flexible
That's
guy,
a good,
too.
that's a good way to put it. And I feel like his relationship connection with what's her name is Mary
Oh,
Mary,
is
yeah.
going to be huge if they go to another tribal, because what we saw, like even when Kevin was still doing the individual at the beginning, like Say had brought in Cedric and what the other one was
Pizza
Justin,
boy.
right? The pizza boy Justin, and they're kind of just like, oh, okay, like we don't have a choice, I guess, because like what I mean. And
Mm.
it's still Justin's kind of like selective choosing his words all the time, which is good, which is smart. That's how you're supposed to do it at the beginning, right? You don't want to set yourself up for future, backlash. And then then he comes back, and then they bring him in, and like I think the three guys are a lot stronger than the four of them, to be honest, even before the tribal happened.
Yeah.
And I think the connection between Mary and Kevin will be
Kevin.
very important, I feel like.
Yeah.
Okay. Not much to say about Mary outside of what you mentioned before in terms of her connection with Kevin. And I think by default, she was connected with Stephanie just because they were kind of like the odd people out. So talking about Stephanie, Stephanie is literally the worst, right? I do not like her from the moment
Well,
that she first appeared.
Second worst.
Second worst.
Oh.
Okay. This is news.
I did not like Stephanie.
I do not like Stephanie at all.
No, I think I'd say Say is worst in my opinion.
Oh, I don't. Well, yeah, I could. Okay, I can see it. I can see it. But like, I don't like Say because of how she just runs all over the place. Like, if she like had some impulse control, I think it would be better. Stephanie, seemingly, I don't like her. I don't like the way she talks. I don't like the way that she, like, even her body language around other people seems so fake.
Stephanie?
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Well, she seems way too relaxed.
Yeah.
Like it's just almost like you're right. It's almost like a little bit disingenuous in a sense, but at the same time, like there's a difference between coming into the game relaxed and just shooting the shit and talking and build connections that way. It almost seemed like she was like, I'm just, I'll take my time. I'll just, and but there was a massive difference between how she was versus Say, which was became I felt was more apparent, like looking at either of them.
But Stephanie too, she that was part of her tactic. She said so. I think when we first met, like when they first started talking about the players, that was part of her game was like to do less is more, and to play that kind of incompetence. It was all part of her thing.
Yeah.
Which I know we'll get into, and it affected that challenge that they were in the end, like her playing up to it, and I think in the end,
You think she threw the challenge?
Huh? I think she threw the challenge.
Ooh, okay.
Spicy.
Okay.
That's a spicy take. Spicy take.
I think she threw the challenge.
Okay. Who else did we not? Did we miss anyone from the?
No, like the only I guess we sort of mentioned Justin, but Cedric was the only other one. He was our first pick. I feel like he's not going to last long.
Cedric is not.
No.
Cedric, the surgeon, is not going to last long.
He was having some issues with that weight when they were doing the puzzle. They were carrying the crate. You could see he was really struggling.
Yeah, and in the first challenge when Kevin got hurt, Kevin still completed his part of it. But when it was time to do the three-person team to go get the key, the reason why their team kind of failed was because Cedric could not get up onto the platform, and he couldn't help at all in terms of carrying his body weight. That is not good.
No, but then didn't he turn around and throw Kevin under the bus and be like, "Oh, we didn't win because of Kevin"?
Did he say that?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, Cedric was like,
him and Say seemed like a real pair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think he will absolutely get rid of Say in a heartbeat.
If push comes to shove.
Yeah.
He's going to keep throwing him under the bus.
Yeah.
And then once she's gone, he's not long for this.
And I don't know about totally dismissing Say as a strong player, only because her lackadaisical her motivation is there. Mm-hmm. It's just the way she's going about it is so lackadaisy that maybe that's part of her tactic too. Mm-hmm. So maybe like she might be in it longer than we think, just because she is such a strong in the sense of she's not giving up. She didn't give up with that puzzle.
She was trying to get through the puzzle with brute force.
But did you see what she did with the other players though? She was calling them in and being like, "Hey, we have this word problem," but she didn't tell them that what she had either. And she'd say, "Oh, I need help with this." They fully helped her, but she's like, "Yeah, all right, I got it. Now it's mine."
Oh, so she acted like she did all the work.
Yeah, and then the tactic of bringing other people in to solve it for her, they didn't even question why. Which is such a weird thing,
Cedric
too.
Cedric found out that it's an idol.
Yeah.
Cedric
found out that it was an idol. He was like, "Oh, probably."
I think Justin found out too, wasn't? Because he was there when she found when she found it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So they were looped in eventually, but yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. It'll be interesting where it goes.
All right, so that leads us to the immunity challenge, which is what's the breakdown? It was
so they basically had to I can't remember the exact beginning of it. They had to I felt like, what was it again? They had to get through they had to go over the beam, the mesh, whatever, right? Over and over, up and over. And then they had to undo the knots, and then the axe swing or whatever to break the crate.
Yeah.
And then they could get their poles or whatever to lift the crate on the sled. Yeah. And then they had to basically move it. They had to move some bags and get it over the bags, get to the next one, do the same thing. Just showing your teamwork and strength. Everyone seemed like they did it pretty easily. It was just the hill at the end is where they got. I think it was Siva that was really struggling. with the hill, or was it Siva? I think it was Siva.
Siva, yeah, Siva
Well,
was
no,
struggling.
Siva
No,
struggled,
Green.
but
No,
no,
Vula.
Oh no,
but
No,
no,
then
Vula was
Green,
struggling.
yeah,
yeah,
Vula was struggling with the hill. Sorry,
yeah,
where they had to
Vula,
bring
yeah,
up
yeah.
the crate, out to the top, and again, like Loggy just crushed it. I thought
Yeah.
I think it was who's I think yeah it was
it was
Vula's
Thomas
puzzle. I thought it was
and
gonna fall. I thought it was gonna fall over.
yeah, well, Thomas and
Oh yeah,
Bianca
yeah.
did the puzzle for Lagi, right? And then it was
Steph and Kevin for Vula,
Vula, and then it
and
was Cherry and
was it? No, it wasn't Mitch.
No, I thought no, it was for Siva.
for Siva it was
I
who?
think it was was it Mary?
Marion.
Oh, Mary and
No,
Cherry.
no, that's Vula. No, she's on Vula. No, oh jeez. Uh,
It's the
Mitch.
flight attendant.
I think it was Mitch was one of them.
Yeah, and Sue.
Oh,
Sue.
Chrissy, the eldest.
Chrissy.
Oh,
Those
Chrissy.
two
Chrissy.
did it.
I think they did it.
I wasn't even looking at that.
Yeah, I know. But
I was
yeah,
like, come
but
on,
Loggy,
Kevin, come on.
yeah,
Oh,
Loggy crushed it, and
Loggy
then
crushed
like it was
it.
kind of a back and forth. I don't know how
Yeah.
like it didn't see like it seemed kind of close in the puzzle, right? Like like it's your basic oval, like it's just like the logo in the bottom left and right of our screen.
yeah.
Like the standard Survivor puzzle. And like again, like I was hoping one of them would fall because it looked like they weren't like. I think it
Oh,
was Vula. It was
Vula.
really like
Yeah.
pushed in at the
It
one
was like
point. It
wobbly.
looked like it was
Well,
gonna topple.
they were three. They were three pieces away, and then it looked like Stephanie put in the wrong piece and kept pushing it in, and then it started breaking, right? And and then Kevin was trying to keep it together, and she was kind of just walking back and forth and not really taking another piece,
Yeah.
and the other team was able to catch up past them and beat them.
I think that was intentional. Totally intentional. And here's why. Because the way I looked at it is like, again, she had already told us in the beginning that was part of her play to throw it. The only reason I think that she threw it was because she thought that she had the 1 in 6. And I think she thought she'd be safe no matter what.
Well, Shot in the Dark is something that, well, okay, I kind of agree with you. Like, Shot in the Dark is usually a last resort because you can only use it once.
Yeah.
I think that she thought that she had the numbers in terms of the relationship with Justin and Kevin, right?
That too, yeah.
And at the same time, Sai being such a big target, and then if anyone's gonna have any heat, it would be Kevin because Kevin technically was a part of 2 losing campaigns, right? And even though Kevin did have the victory in terms of it, she tried her best. They almost won. Sai obviously looks dirty, right? It should be an easy choice, right? So yeah, I can see it in that respect. Not knowing that Sai had already put in the work to get Justin and Kevin on their side. Now, okay, do you think that Justin and Kevin made the right choice to keep Say and not keep Stephanie?
No, like here's the thing. Like in the moment, yes, because they had already built that relationship with Say. They knew the type of competitor she was. But I feel like when they got to Tribal, the way that Say was talking, and I mentioned this at the
Yeah.
beginning of the podcast, like, and because you were talking about how they don't, it's good to go to Tribal because you reveal yourself, right, Jaemeel? And
Yep.
I feel like Say really dug herself a hole in terms of the type of person and perspective that she may have. Stephanie didn't help herself out by any means, but I feel like people left like Justin and they kind of said it right in the preview for next episode, like she's got to go, right? Like and she's got the idol, so it's a matter of how they're going to approach, either like and you could tell she's very paranoid, on how they're going to do it without her either playing it or flushing it out. But once again, if that's the game they're going to play, then it's probably not going to. They're probably going to be back to tribal sooner than later because their team dynamic is already in shambles.
Falling apart, yeah.
I think that they made the right choice, and this is the reason why. Because Sai dug a hole for herself, getting rid of Stephanie made the most amount of sense because Stephanie wasn't going to be a part of their future plans, right? So you get rid of Stephanie. Sai, right? Or Say, sorry. Next tribal comes up, she's gone, right? And you have the votes because everyone is like galvanized towards getting rid of her because she dug her own grave. It makes it an easy vote. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be my allies I trust, which is Justin and Cedric, right? And then they can bring in, is it Mary? All right. And like Kevin can rebuild that bridge saying, sorry, Stephanie, the writing was on the wall. Say had an idol and we didn't want to risk it, but she's terrible. I should have gone with you. So for this vote, we're going to stick together and get rid of Say. That's how he rebuilds that trust with Mary, gets her to Say, gets rid of the idol as well. Plus, their Stephanie is also gone as well, who was not part of his future plans. And he, by de facto, he's the strongest person in that alliance as well. So I think and same thing with Justin. Justin's in the good middle row where he mimics exactly what Kevin says, and they're both in a good position going forward in the game.
I would even argue
Yeah,
Justin's
I
in
think
a
it
better
strengthens
position.
it strengthens their alliance. But sorry, what'd you say, Becky? I missed that. Apologize.
Oh, no, all good. I just said that I would even think that Justin's in a better position.
You think so?
I think so because he seems to be playing the game a little bit more like I'm gonna feel it out. I'm gonna wait and see. I'm gonna hang back, and I'm gonna see what comes of like because they're kind of leaning this way, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So I'm gonna hold on to my vote. He's really playing his cards close.
Which Foster, you mentioned previously that the way he was choosing his words was very calculated, right? And not necessarily committing to either side, where you're absolutely right. Kevin was a lot more agreeable to Mary and to Stephanie about plans than Justin was, and Mary could look at it as, sure, I'll trust you for this next vote to get rid of Say, but I don't trust you because you said yes, or I got the implication that you were going to say yes, and then you turn around and you didn't. Justin never gave me that same, affirmation as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a more common approach with most players in this day and age is to not say things that will damn you later on so early on kind of thing, right? At least the more successful players I find have that better strategy, at least at the beginning. Because just like, it's the kind of the premise of not burning out too quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And not and you're also, like you said, Becky, you're kind of just waiting and seeing, kind of feeling off, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, like, you're kind of not on a side, which is good because you're not then a target for somebody else because they're not saying like, oh, you're on that side. Well, because now Justin's like, he's going to get pulled as a vote, right? Until the time comes where he can maybe have a little more trust in whoever maybe. And it feels like Kevin right now.
Yeah. Well, I think too with Kevin, like he's put himself out there with the challenges quite a bit, and then if he loses, like that's just more like, oh, you're putting yourself out there, but you're underperforming. So when it comes to stuff like that, like people are going to remember that.
Sai's going to remember that. Say's going to remember that. She specifically targeted Stephanie because of that.
Yeah, like like putting yourself out there, but I think it's very different with Kevin because with Stephanie, where she was possibly throwing it, I think Kevin is willingly wanting to do his best and try his best and win for his team. and I think he's just coming up short.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like, when it comes down to the merge, or and how it sways the vote, they probably would look at, like, oh well, like, you've underperformed, but you're so willing to do it, but you're not getting the job done, so you become a weaker link
Yeah.
in that regard.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, what are your thoughts for what's going to happen next? You didn't get to see the preview for next
No,
episode.
I
You didn't.
I missed the preview.
Wait, before we get to the preview, I want to mention something real quick, Jaemeel.
Okay.
They talked about season 50 today.
Yes.
Woo-hoo.
And they were talking about how, like, because I know that, I'm pretty sure they've filmed 48 and 49, and they're going to have these votes or whatever, fan votes or whatever. And what I anticipate, because, they will probably film 50 this fall, I believe was what I would assume, or this summer,
Yeah.
right? Because they'll have 48 now and then 49 in the fall. And so they did mention that they're going to have all returning players, or they're going to have returners. I would assume all, like, that's what they've been building up to, with having no returners this entire run of 40s.
Technically, outside of one.
Well, which one? The
Bruce.
40? Oh,
Bruce technically was a returning player.
yes. Okay, Jaemeel. Yeah. Well, he had
I'm just
that.
saying
Yeah.
technically.
Well, no, it's fair, because it's funny enough. I remember when because he was like, he felt like the shit when he came back, because he's like, I know what I'm doing and this, that. And he was like, you were there for less than a day, man. But like, it was like the way that he talked and stuff. And it was like a different, yeah. So, but no, but I feel like, this is what I know we still have this season, 49. It's really cool. I think that they're talking about it now. Obviously, like, how this season goes, especially with whatever these fan votes are going to really mean something. I will mention, like, I'd like to mention, like, the season I just finished of the challenge was season 40, right? And essentially, like, they won't do this for Survivor, but what they did was they called it Battle of the Eras. So they had like 10 people from each era. So over the first 10, the teens, the 20s, and the 30s. And so they had a bunch of those kind of, like, callbacks in a sense, right? But with Survivor, and they always have returning players with the challenge. That's always the case. But with Survivor, with there being nobody other than Bruce, I'm very excited to see, because I do miss that with the older Survivor seasons, with the returns, because I feel like a lot of times people can get so much better when they return, and as well, because whatever the premise is of returning, I would assume there's going to be at least a few winners, I would think, Jaemeel, or at least
Possibly.
some. I would think maybe half finals. Like final 3, final 4 people. Half of them will be, or something like that. Didn't make it, didn't like finish off, whatever. Like, I even, like, when you mentioned Gabe at the beginning, I felt like Gabe was going to be. I feel like he could be a good returner.
I don't think he's coming back.
You don't think so?
No.
I think he'd be a good choice.
I think he would be a good choice. I don't think he's coming back.
Or even like Andy, to be honest, or Genevieve, or, where I feel like could be strong candidates from last season. Like, once again, I don't know what the like pre-merge, post-merge, final, whatever it's going to be. But I just want to make that point, because the fact that they mentioned it the first episode is really cool to me, right? And it tells me that obviously it's different, because then they film 2 seasons at a time. They can't do this during season 49, because they'll be filming 50 or have it done by then. But the hype is starting now for 50.
Hype train. Yeah. Okay. Thoughts? Final thoughts?
Yeah, well, just like the next week's episode, I guess, what was there? So there was the, the little sabotage thing for Loggy, there was the you're talking about SAA, how she's got to go, I think, and I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, no, just I think decent first episode. Like I still feel like I find with these newer seasons, you gotta get a few episodes in before you really like or dislike the characters, unless you're a Say.
Okay.
No, it was a decent. It was a good first run, first episode. I can't wait to see next week. See how things progress with all the teams. I will continue to cheer on Team Ravi.
Joe
yeah.
and Joe and who's the Joe and
Mitch.
Eva. Oh,
Mitch.
Mitch. Yeah, I will continue to cheer them on.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where things go.
I'm happy to have you, Becky, cheer on half my team. So thank you.
Yeah.
I just want good to happen for Kevin and Camilla.
Send those vibes.
Good vibes for Jaemeel this season, everyone. Good vibes for Jaemeel.
I got to the finals last time, but it was a 0 vote finalist. Mm-hmm. I need a win. I'm desperate at this point.
Kev's gonna win.
I'm just desperate at this point. Okay. Dave should be back next week, so it's going to be back to the regular format. But it's always great to catch up with you, Foster, and thank you, Becky, for joining. It's great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Take care, and I awkwardly have to press buttons over there, so my butt might be in frame. So good night, everyone.
Ciao for now.
What's in frame? What's in frame? What's in frame? What's in frame? Let's see. Where's the video clip? Where's the video clip?
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.